everyone. I'm Steve Krupinski. I'm the marketing director with Michigan Radio. Thank you very much for coming out. Beautiful evening in Holland, and we hope you're going to enjoy the discussion we're going to have on renewable energy. Before I turn things over to Rebecca Williams, who's going to be our host, a couple housekeeping matters I just want to address with everyone. Tonight's event is being videotaped. We're not actually broadcasting this live on Michigan Radio, or I think there was a little miscommunication on that, but we are videotaping the event. So when we get to the question and answer portion, we're going to ask if you go up to sort of the sound booth there. They have a microphone just so we can hear your questions up on stage and so we can get it on the videotape. I mean, if you're right down in front, if you want to just shout out your question, fine. But when we get to the Q&A, if you'll go up to the sound booth there, everyone will be able to hear your question. Everyone's been wondering about the little clickers that we've been handing out. We are going to be doing some instant audience polling throughout the evening to gauge your opinion on some questions about renewable energy. So you should hopefully all have clickers. If not, raise your hand, and one of my lovely assistants, Lindsay Smith or Diane Sisler there, will hand out some clickers to you. So the way these work is when you see the question appear on the screen, they're all going to be multiple choice, either yes or no, or pick 1, 2, 3, or 4. When you see the question appear on the screen, Rebecca will read it to you, and all you do is punch in the number on the clicker that corresponds to the answer you want to give on there. I do want to emphasize you can only vote once, and your first vote, your first response is what click. So you can't change your mind. So make sure that you hear the question and you see what all the responses are before you punch in your answer with that. We are going to be collecting these clickers at the end of the night. They were loaned to us by our good friends at the Center for Michigan, our partners here, and we prefer not to have to do another fund drive to pay for these afterwards. So when you're done at the end of the evening, if you'll either just leave them on your table or your chair, or give them to me or one of our other Michigan Radio staff that's here, and we'll collect these at the end of the evening. You cannot use these for your remote control on your Wii or your Nintendo or your TV, so they really don't have a whole lot of value outside of here later today. Today's event is sponsored, of course, by Michigan Radio and the Center for Michigan, and the Environment Report. I do want to remind you that if you're not already familiar with it, you can hear the Environment Report on Michigan Radio every Tuesday and Thursday at 8:55 in the morning and 5:45 p.m. I'm sure you were all listening to that just before you came here. And if you're interested in signing up for the Environment Report newsletter, if you just go to michiganradio.org and follow the links at the bottom of the page for newsletter, you can sign up for the Environment Report newsletter. And last but not least, I want to remind you that Michigan Radio does have another event coming up here in West Michigan in just a couple weeks. Our sports commentator, John U. Bacon, is going to be at the Grand Rapids Wine, Beer, and Food Festival, which is going to be at DeVos Place in downtown Grand Rapids on Thursday, November 17th at 6:30 p.m. And he's going to be discussing his brand new book, which is called 3 and Out, Rich Rodriguez and the Michigan Wolverines in the Crucible of College Football. A little different kind of an event than tonight's Issues and Ale event. But if you're a college football fan, Michigan Wolverines or otherwise, you may want to check out that event coming up on November 17th. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Rebecca Williams, the host of the Environment Report.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. It's great to have you all here. So a little bit about Issues in Ale. These are events that we hold at Michigan Radio. They're supposed to be relaxed, informal discussions about important issues facing Michigan. So drink a lot of beer if you want, or if you don't want to. But we're going to be opening up the questions for you all later this evening. And first we're going to start with our panelists, who I'd like to introduce. And I'll start with Dr. Harold Glasser. And you guys are out of order, so bear with me just a moment.
We can move.
Dr. Harold Glasser is a professor of environmental studies at Western Michigan University, and he's also the executive director for campus sustainability. His research interests include sustainability, environmental values, and policy. Then we have Hugh McDermott, and he's the communications director for the Michigan Environmental Council. MEC describes themselves as the voice in Lansing for a coalition of 60 environmental, health, and faith-based groups. Hugh joined MEC after a 22-year career as a journalist in Michigan, and he specialized in reporting on the environment. And last but not least, we have Dr. Paul Isley, who is a professor of economics and the chair of the economics department at Grand Valley State University. and he's currently working on reports evaluating wind power along the lakeshore. He's been appointed to the Utility Consumer Participation Board by Governor Snyder. And we would like to start this out tonight. First of all, we're going to be asking a question of all of you. And you can use your clickers to start out, if Steve is ready. So you can see here, if you can't see in the back, what renewable energy source offers the greatest potential in Michigan. 1 is solar, 2 is wind, 3 biomass, 4 hydropower, 5 geothermal, 6 none of the above. So you can take a moment and vote. While you're thinking about that, I just wanted to mention that we'd like to thank Masco Corporation and the Martin Waymeyer Advocacy Communications for their generous financial support of this series, and also Jay Peters here at the Park Theater for providing us with the venue for tonight's discussion. I also wanted to mention Lindsay Smith, our West Michigan reporter, is here, and she'll be tweeting tonight. So if you want to join in on the discussion, the hashtag is IssuesAle. All right, so tonight we're going to be talking about renewable energy, and I wanted to mention we're here in Holland, and obviously the coal plant here is a topic of a lot of controversy. And it's okay to talk about that, but we don't want to make that the sole focus of tonight's discussion. We want this to be a broader look at what the future of Michigan's energy sources should be, what you all think they should be, how do we get there, and that sort of thing. So I'd like to start, first, Hugh, could you start by telling us what you define as renewable energy sources?
Sure. What we define as renewable energy sources are energy sources that are going to be available to us in perpetuity. And clearly wind and solar are renewable energy sources. And there are two, I guess there's a distinction to be made between the dictionary definition of renewable and the definition of renewable that's written into laws and renewable energy standards and various things like that. Because we all sort of know intuitively what's renewable and what's not. But once you get into defining renewable when you're a state legislature or when you're a utility company or when you're an environmental advocate, it gets very different when you're writing the laws. So there are a number of parts of the law in Michigan that we say, well, that's not really renewable, like maybe capturing heat from incinerators. We don't really think that's renewable, but there are provisions in the law that some of the utilities can count some of that toward the renewable energy credits. So renewable energy is energy that's available to us all the time. It's generally energy that is the fuel source doesn't cost us anything and won't cost us anything 50 years from now, and that we can always count on will be there. That's our definition of renewable.
And Paul, Harold, do you want to add to that?
I'll let you go first. Go right ahead.
Well, I mean, renewable certainly contains all of those components, and we really want to be able to see that that it's a sustainable source of energy, and it's not something that's going to be used up over time. So I guess I take it one step simpler because I'm not involved in all the legal action stuff, but that's how I view it.
I think if you look at the state's
You can pull these out.
renewable portfolio standards, and if you look at the previous energy plan, the 21st Century Electric Energy Plan, I think that you have to consider other sources. It's not. I agree with you in terms of his definition, MEC's definition of energy sources that are available essentially for free in perpetuity. You also have to consider things like biomass. It's potentially available in perpetuity. Certainly the state views it as a renewable energy source. Same thing goes, with hydro. I have to say that my preferences are certainly, in terms of solar and wind, but I think there are, it's like anything else in life, there are sort of gradations of how renewable we would consider these different sources.
You can hold the mics up so everybody can hear you. All right, a series of technical difficulties. How's it going, Steve? Okay. All right, so while we wait. Oh, go ahead and vote again? Okay, please vote again. Okay. All right, so while you're voting, All right, so Paul, let's start with you. What's, in your opinion, your vision for the future of renewable energy in Michigan? 10 seconds or less.
10 seconds or less. I see it at least starting with using what we're already good at, which is manufacturing. So in our area, wind is certainly one of the best choices for us to deal with because we already have the manufacturing capacity to deal with it. 10 seconds or less.
All right, Hugh.
I don't know if I can do it in 10 seconds.
That's all you got.
Can you give me 15 or 20 minutes?
No.
No, okay. I guess my vision is that, and I want to digress a little bit and talk about energy efficiency, because I consider that renewable energy, and energy efficiency is the only way of meeting our energy needs that saves ratepayers money, it saves businesses money, it saves industrial operations money, and it saves homeowners money. And it's the most cost-effective way to do that. And I'll probably get into some numbers later on how effective on a per dollar basis energy efficiency is. But energy efficiency should be our first, second, and third highest priority method of meeting our energy needs. And after that, we should start talking about generation of energy. Energy efficiency isn't very sexy. It doesn't have a windmill as an image. It doesn't, it doesn't have a power plant. It doesn't have a concentrated bunch of workers like a power plant does. It's more diffuse, mom and pop insulation companies. But anyway, I'm digressing, but energy efficiency should be our first option for energy. And after that, I think that we should be really smart about what our energy portfolio looks like, what percentage comes from wind and solar and fossil fuels and everything else, because every state is different, every region is different, every city is different in their strengths and natural assets and ability to harness renewable energy. So maximizing energy efficiency, maximizing renewable, non-polluting, inexpensive energy where the fuel is free, and then moving on from there and talking about where we need to fill the gaps and what we're going to use to do with that. Being really smart about it, I guess is the short answer for me.
Okay, and Harold?
Yeah, I think I'll take issue with Hugh's point again.
All right.
And I'll say that it's the fourth, fifth, and sixth, too. So it's not just the first, second, and third.
Oh. Well, that's not much of a fight.
It was a joke.
I was ready.
No. So in addition to that, I would even go further than saying it's, the fourth, fifth, and sixth, and that we need to be considering our approach to consumption as part of our demand-side management. So it's not just increasing the energy efficiency of everything we do. It's considering the embodied energy in everything we consume. It's considering the embodied energy in our clothes. It's considering the embodied energy in our food. It's considering the embodied energy in our housing, not just the conservation element.